thing that they found down at the South Pole. Now this storm is bigger than the United States.
The Great Red Spot on Jupiter is merely hurricane-like. That storm doesn't have an eye wall. However, the South Pole storm has the characteristics of a terrestrial hurricane, including an eye wall, making it the only such storm on another planet.
It's not clear that it is a hurricane in every sense, like we have here on Earth, but so far the morphology of it looks very much like a hurricane. That was very exciting. Everyone got very excited about that. It even surprised us.
And you can see right down into the eye, just as you can with a hurricane on Earth, and they can see farther into Saturn.
Of a terrestrial hurricane, including an eye wall, making it the only such storm on
Atmosphere
another
than they've
planet.
ever been able to see before. So this thing
It's
is
not
literally a
clear
window
that it is a
into
hurricane
Saturn.
in every sense, like we have here on Earth, but
And it's amazing to see something so similar to Earth on Saturn and then find out that we can actually do some science because of it.
The South Pole storm measures 5,000 miles across. That's 2/3 the diameter of the Earth. If a hurricane that huge were to form
We've been able to see before.
here,
So this thing is
It's not
literally a
clear
window
that
distance
to
from
Saturn.
New
every
York City
sense.
to Baghdad, annihilating all in its path. If a hurricane that huge were to form,
It's basically a swirling vortex of air that is centered around a hole
We've been able to see before.
here,
So this thing is
distance from
Saturn.
New
every
York City
sense.
to Baghdad,
right at the center with a walleye around it.
what powers this monster storm is still unknown.
And the winds are stronger on Saturn than they are on Earth, which is a puzzle in itself because Saturn gets so little energy from either the sun or from its own inside.
It's centered around the South Pole of Saturn, rather than being, you know, in the equatorial region like a hurricane on Earth would be.
In early 2007, modern imaging technology revealed something else on Saturn that astounded scientists.
We see it very, very intensely now.
It's something big, something strange, and something never seen in the universe before. Saturn, the solar system's most bizarre yet beautiful planet, has just gotten even more mysterious. In 1979, the Voyager spacecraft showed a perfect geometric form over the North Pole. In October 2006, the Cassini craft found that it is still there.
It's just bizarre. And it sits there kind of still. It doesn't move with the planet. The pole, there's a hexagonal feature, a six-sided polygon. That encircles the pole at about 78 degrees north latitude. And it's sitting there as a set feature.
The hexagon is similar to Earth's polar vortex, which has winds blowing in a circular fashion around the pole. Saturn's vortex can fit 4 Earths inside of it and extend descends 60 miles deep into Saturn's clouds.
And what's more bizarre, Voyager saw little tiny clouds going around at about 100 meters per second, which is about 200 miles an hour, going around this racetrack. People thought, well, maybe it's just a temporary thing. How could this stay there? It's been there now for at least 20 years, and we're going, what is this?
If you go there, you're going to enter these thick clouds. And the deeper you go, the more intense the pressure is going to get, to a point when you just implode. You and your spacecraft can't make it any farther. If you go there, you're going to enter these thick clouds. And the deeper you go, the more intense the pressure is going to get.
For now, visits to Saturn's orbit are reserved for unmanned spacecraft. But surrounding the planet are at least 48 moons. Venturing to one of those is more feasible.
What's interesting now that we're going to the planets is that we're learning that in some ways the moons are where the action is.
We've already been to one of them. Titan is the only moon other than our own to have been explored. The event was beyond significant. On January 14, 2005, science fiction became fact. As part of the ongoing Cassini mission to Saturn, the unmanned Huygens probe descended onto the surface of Saturn's biggest moon. Titan lives up to its name. It is the size of the planet Mercury. In fact, it is the second largest moon in the solar system, 50% bigger than our moon. It is seductive in many ways. For one, Titan looks much like Earth.
That was the thing that hit me over the head. Just how remarkably similar in process. The surface of Titan looked. We have river channels that feed into these lake beds. We have winds. And then in other areas, we have dunes. The equator region of Titan, at least on one side where we've gotten good radar imagery, has hundreds and hundreds of miles of these dunes that are 100 meters high, several miles apart, and they just go on, this vast sea of dunes.
There are possibly deposits of solid hydrocarbons.
And we didn't really know until that probe landed whether it was going to hit liquid or some solid surface. It seemed to kind of fall on what looks like kind of pudding. It doesn't seem to be liquid or solid. It seems that Titan has some goo on the surface. It's almost kind of neither land nor sea, but something in between. That's very amazing.
Amazingly, Titan, like Earth, has an extended atmosphere. No other moon does in our solar system.
The atmosphere of Titan is very, very thick, very, very massive. It has a mass that's 10 times the mass of the Earth's atmosphere. And so you have a very, very thick layer of gases. So it's thicker than the air as we know it. The particles in the air are also very small, and so I would characterize them more as a haze than as a fog or clouds.
The haze is 200 miles thick, resembling something else on Earth.
From the outside, it appears essentially opaque, like a big orange ball. But as the Huygens probe descended through the atmosphere, it's transparent enough to be able to see the surface features as it fell through. But it's not unlike a hazy day here in Los Angeles.
It's not the color of the atmosphere that most intrigues scientists. It's the composition. Nitrogen and methane, the same gases they believe made up much of Earth's early atmosphere.
The idea that Titan's atmosphere mimics the atmosphere of early Earth 4 billion years ago is something we're very, very excited about and interested in, and it's one of the things we're studying very hard in our laboratory. Let's see if we can get this aligned. What do we have?
At the University of Colorado, Dr. Margaret Tolbert is simulating Titan's atmosphere in her lab. Might it, too, have the necessary ingredients for life?
In this experiment, we're trying to simulate the chemistry that goes on high in Titan's atmosphere where the haze is forming. And so what we have is a reaction chamber here, and all that we have in there is nitrogen and methane. So the two most important components of Titan's atmosphere. And then we're just going to flick on a lamp, and that lamp is going to simulate the sunlight hitting Titan's atmosphere.
Incredibly, Tolbert's research has shown that Titan's atmosphere, when stimulated by sunlight, begins to produce organic compounds. To scientists looking for life beyond our planet, this could be big. As scientists scour the galaxy for signs of life, there are some exciting results from within our own solar system. Saturn's moon, Titan, seems to have the necessary ingredients. Testing at the University of Colorado has shown that when sunlight interacts with Titan's nitrogen and methane-rich atmosphere, organic compounds for signs of life. There are some exciting results from within our own solar system.
Floating down to the surface of Titan, and you can see them in the pictures, and who knows what they're doing once they're there. They could be providing energy to some new kind of life.
Further research is needed to determine if there really is life on Titan, or if it might someday develop. Although its atmosphere resembles early Earth, the environment is vastly different.
It's cold. It's 300 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, and there's no liquid water. So that's a big difference between early Earth and Titan.
The lakes and riverbeds on Titan were carved out of the ground by something. There's no liquid water on the moon, so what flows on this terrain?
The hills on Earth are made of silicate rocks, whereas the hills on Titan are ice and methane ice. The river channels on Titan are formed by methane rain, as opposed to the Earth river valleys formed by water.
Liquid methane, it seems, rains down on Titan, or did at one time.
On Titan, it is so cold that gas has liquefied, and there are coastlines and rivers and all this terrain shaped by moving rivers of methane. It's just completely intriguing.
Methane is the principal component of natural gas, butane, and propane, all sources of fuel.
There's a lot of hydrocarbons. It might be very light hydrocarbons on Titan. And there's a lot of it. And it burns if you put it in contact with oxygen. So there's a lot of energy out there.
Enough on the surface of this huge moon to supply all of Earth's needs for a very long time.
Well, here's this tremendous supply of natural gas on Titan. Boy, wouldn't it be out there and tap into it and bring it back? But I think that you would the methane and bring it back, that you would never be able to effectively power anything on Earth with it.
While Titan is Saturn's largest moon, one of its smallest may be even more exciting. It's a brilliant ball of ice and rock called Enceladus.
It's a tiny object. It's only about 300 miles in size, so that's what, about the eighth the size of our own moon. And we've never seen a body that small that has activity on it.
This activity was discovered in 2005 by Dr. Carolyn Porco and her Cassini imaging team. One photo seemed to suggest that jets were coming out of Enceladus.
It seemed very likely to the members of my team that it's possible that these jets are actually geysers. They're erupting from pockets of liquid water not too far beneath the surface.
The closest thing we have on Earth to Enceladus is something like Old Faithful Geyser here at Yellowstone National Park, which is shooting water vapor and water about 150 feet into the air. The geysers on Enceladus are erupting water vapor hundreds of miles into the air because of the much lower gravity there and the fact there's no atmosphere holding them in.
Many geysers have since been discovered, all in a region of Enceladus's southern hemisphere.
They are coming out of these fissures, these big cracks that go on for about 135 kilometers, something like 80 miles of cracks.
We call them tiger stripes because when we first saw them, they really looked like the stripes on a tiger. There are 4 areas that seem to be ridges or kind of active geologic areas, and the plumes seem to be coming out of these areas. And we've counted about 20 or 21 plumes.
Southern Enceladus is covered in cosmic Old Faithfuls.
Who would have thought that an ice ball about the size of Texas would be alive with plumes and geysers? I mean, it's astounding.
Enceladus is heated in its interior by the tides of Saturn. The Earth's moon is pulling on the Earth's oceans and distorting their shape and producing the tides that we're familiar with here on Earth. But on Enceladus, the planet Saturn is pulling on that moon, and as Enceladus goes around in its orbit, that pull is changing and the ice inside Enceladus is creaking and groaning and rubbing against itself and creating a lot of heat through friction. We think it's that frictional heat that is producing the evaporation of the water ice that is then escaping through these cracks and making the geysers that we see there.
And there's more. Enceladus